It's another game. I mean, after the game, it'll mean a lot. Before the game, it means nothing. Like I said, you're facing a tremendously coached team, a talented football team, and we just got to go out and play ball. It doesn't do anything as far as me at Pitt or anything else. I mean, what's it matter?
Yeah, maybe Pat Narduzzi's right. Maybe it's just another game. Maybe after the game, it'll mean a lot, but before the game, it means nothing. Just got to go out and play ball. Doesn't do anything, as far as me, Pitt, anything else. What's it matter? Maybe he's right. And maybe we're all just going to spend this week, just like we all spent last week, talking about a game and building it up to be something big, when at the end of the day, it'll be the same size football played over the course of 60 minutes on a field that's 100 yards long and however many yards wide it is. What is it, 50, 53, or whatever, Maybe it is just another game. It's not just another game. It's Pitt Notre Dame. Pitt Notre Dame is always a big deal. Pitt Notre Dame, when both teams are 7-2 in the entering the final quarter of the season, is a bigger deal. Pitt Notre Dame, when both teams are 7-2 entering the final quarter of the season and they're both ranked, is an even bigger deal. And Pitt Notre Dame, when both teams are 7-2 entering the final quarter of the season, both teams ranked, college game day in town, playoff implications on the line. Yeah, it's not just another game. But if that's how you want to approach it, Pat Narduzzi, you approach it like that, as if it is just another game. But, dude, it's not just another game. All right, that was just one thing Pat Narduzzi said at his weekly press conference yesterday. He said a lot of things that I think are interesting. We kind of went all over the place. And we're going to go all over the place today as we recap Pat Narduzzi's press conference, how Narduzzi's approaching this game with the team, which I think is actually kind of an interesting conversation to have as well, as we look at his comments yesterday and maybe how he's approaching the mentality of the team, the mindset of the team heading into a huge game, what he thinks Mason Heintschel needs to do against Notre Dame's defense and how he's going to handle that. A little bit of a trip down history lane about whether, what we're facing here or what we're about to see Pitt take on is unprecedented or not. And then a little bit of talk about the ACC divisions. People like it when Pat Narduzzi throws a little shade or gets a little petty, and he did that yesterday. We'll include that as well. Let's break down Pat Narduzzi's weekly press conference as we count down the days to Notre Dame here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, the Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt follows Pat Narduzzi's weekly press conference on Monday. Like I said, we've been doing this all season, taking our Tuesday Morning Pitt and just kind of recapping what Narduzzi talks about at his weekly press conference. And we pull some clips from the press conference and add a little context and talk about it, a few comments or quotes that stick out to me. And sometimes it's the most notable thing Pat Narduzzi says, and sometimes it's just something I want to talk about. So I use his quote as an opportunity for me to blabber on for a little jibber-jabber, as the man might say, for a little while about, whatever it is that Narduzzi talked about. But the big topic this week, of course, is Pitt taking on Notre Dame at Acrisure Stadium on Saturday at noon, college game day in town, a huge game, 2 7-2 teams, 2 ranked teams, Pitt 24, Notre Dame number 10. Assuming both teams we'll see if Notre Dame moves up. We'll see what happens with the new college football playoff rankings tonight. But it's going to be a huge game between 2 ranked 7-2 teams entering the final quarter of the season. A lot of implications and a lot of things that matter for both of these teams and in the national picture as well. So it's not just another game. But what's interesting to me, and this is always interesting to me, is how coaches approach games like this with their team. How do you go about it? Like, what's the tone you want to set? Because I can see both sides. On one hand, I think you do want to stress to your players the importance of this game, the significance of this game, what's on the line in this game, how big a game this is, what the program can accomplish here, the spotlight that's going to be on them on Saturday, and the opportunity that's in front of them. I think there are times when you do want to push that. Because you're going to need that little extra something out of the players. If you're going to go out there and beat Notre Dame on Saturday, you can't just roll out there and sort of play sort of sloppy like you did at Stanford or like you did at Syracuse. Like, you're going to have to play really, really sharp, and it's going to take that extra little bit of focus, that extra little bit of effort, that extra little bit of just being as close to perfect as you can. And maybe you get the guys fired up by emphasizing what this game is and what's on the line here. And maybe that gets them just a little bit more focused, a little bit more effort, a little bit more detail oriented. But I can see the other side too. Like Pat Narduzzi said there, it's just another game. Like, I don't think anybody believes that it's just another game, but I think in terms of your preparation through the week, maybe you do want to just approach it the same way you would approach any other game. You don't want to change things too much. Now, you want the guys to work extra hard in film and work extra hard in practice and really lock in on everything, but maybe you don't want to use that pressure through the week. You want your preparation to stay the same so that everything's getting accomplished. Everything that needs to get accomplished throughout the week gets accomplished throughout the week. And so I could sort of see both sides. And maybe the reality is that it's both. That it's through the week, you want to approach it just like you approach every week of the season. And then when it's game day, you fire them up. And we've seen Pat Narduzzi's pregame speeches in the locker room, right? The Clemson game in 2016 and some of the other games where they've shown him in the locker room getting the players fired up, getting them ready to go. I mean, he doesn't approach every game the same way. Like, his pregame speech before the Clemson game in 2016 is not the same speech that he gave before the Central Michigan game this year. Like, there are times when Narduzzi brings that out. And if ever there was a time to do it, I mean, certainly the next 2 games after this will be one, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's this game here because of the opportunity that's in front of them. And that's something of an intangible quality, an intangible goal that you're seeking out, that you want to seize the opportunity, the spotlight's on you and everything like that. But it is a real thing. For now, Pat Narduzzi, though, is downplaying the stage that this game is on.
You talk about the stage. You could play this game at 7 a.m. over, at the field house on campus. You can play it, Carnegie Mellon. You can play it, in the parking lot out here or in our indoor facility. Doesn't matter what time, doesn't matter who we're playing against. Our guys are coming to play, period. And, all the hoopla, the game date, all that stuff, that's great for, great for the city of Pittsburgh. It's great for the University of Pittsburgh. It's on a big stage. But, in here, we're insulated in here as far as that goes. I mean, it's just a game. I mean, once that kickoff starts, our guys got to be locked in, play one play at a time, and be focused. That's what it comes down to. So don't let, you guys can get all excited, but we're just going to play our game.
I mean, he's right. I am excited. He says you guys can get all excited. I am excited. I'm excited to go to this game and cover this game. I'm excited to be in a great atmosphere at Acrisure Stadium. That place is going to be rocking. I think they said yesterday there's less than 1,500 tickets left. Maybe by the time you watch this, they'll have sold those or gotten even further down, run the inventory down even lower. It's going to be a big stage, and there's going to be energy from the crowd. And the players, I think, are going to have an opportunity to feed on that and feed off of that. It is a big stage. And no, you can't take this game to the field house or Carnegie Mellon or the parking lot or the indoor facility or anything like that. Yes, your players should be ready to go, but they're getting Notre Dame in front of the biggest crowd, maybe one of the biggest crowds that these players will ever see, at least at home, with a whole lot riding on it. And so the stage is a big stage. And I think there is value in embracing that. I think there is value in big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. I think there is value in pushing for that, saying you have to go out and make a play. And you don't want to end up not doing your job and everything like that. But I just think that balance is really interesting of how you ramp up the pressure, but you also make sure you're getting the work done the same way you get it done every week. I think Pat Narduzzi will get a little bit of both and focus on the work through the week and then fire him up before the game. He was asked, though, yesterday, is this game a must-win game? And after all the time that we've spent talking about ACC scenarios, the reality is this game doesn't figure into those ACC scenarios. When we talk about Pitt needs to win out, we're saying they need to win out against Georgia Tech and Miami and then have Virginia or SMU lose one of their remaining games. And so in terms of that goal of getting to Charlotte, getting to the ACC championship game, this game is not relevant. And so, but we all know there's a whole lot in terms of spotlight and opportunity. But Pat Narduzzi was asked yesterday, is this a must-win game? And he was pretty direct in his response.
Absolutely not. It is not an ACC game. I'm glad you brought that up. It's not an ACC game. I gladly get beat 103 or 110 to 10 in that game. They can put 100 up on us as long as we win the next two after that. But again, our focus is on Notre Dame and getting as many wins as we can, one at a time.
Sometimes I think you might protest too much. I mean, like, I would gladly get beat 103 or 110 to 10 in that game. They can put 100 on us as long as we win the next two after that. Well, no. But I get the point, and I think maybe the key quote in there is, I'm glad you brought that up. Narduzzi's going to fire these players up. Narduzzi wants to win this game probably more than you want him to win this game. He absolutely wants to go out and get a victory here. But the talking point after this game, no matter what happens, win or lose, the talking point in that post-game press conference at 5 o'clock or 4:30 or whatever time it is on Saturday will be, we have to go win the ACC games. That'll be the talking point from the players, from Pat Narduzzi, from everybody after this game. We have to go win the ACC games, whether they beat Notre Dame or whether they lose to Notre Dame. If they beat Notre Dame, that's good. Now we need to go take care of business in these final two conference games. If they lose to Notre Dame, it'll be, we're really disappointed, but our goals are still in front of us. And both will be true. You do need to take care of those two games. Now, we went over the scenarios yesterday. Like I said, Pitt needs to win out against Georgia Tech and Miami, and then Pitt needs Virginia and or SMU to lose. SMU and Virginia play 2 games each. They have 2 games left on their schedules. Who did I say? Virginia's at Duke, then they're off, and then they host Virginia Tech. SMU is off this weekend, then they host Louisville, and then they're at Cal. One of those 4 games needs to end with Virginia or SMU losing. If that happens and Pitt wins out, the Panthers will make the ACC championship game. All of this convoluted nonsense, all of these tiebreakers and scenarios and common opponents and 4th tiebreaker and 5th tiebreaker and all this crap we've been doing for the past 4 days is because the ACC decided in its infinite wisdom 3 years ago to do away with the divisions. When you had the Atlantic Division and you had the Coastal Division, it was far simpler to tell who was who, where they were in the standings, and what they needed to do to, whether they were eliminated or what they needed to do in order to win the division and get to the ACC championship game. But the ACC, in its infinite wisdom, did away with those divisions. So I asked Pat Narduzzi, were you in favor of doing away with the divisions? Would you like to go back to divisions? Pat Narduzzi delivered.
Yeah, I remember vividly campaigning, might say, for keeping the divisions. I think, and then you add teams. That was back before you had a team. Now you got even more teams. You got this big, long line of, I remember talking to Dino Baber saying, Dino, it's a lot different being, 6th or 7th in a division as opposed to 15 or 16 in the ACC. I mean, when you're way down there, it gets you fired. And, being 6 doesn't sound as bad in the league. So I was a big proponent of keeping the division. I still believe in it. I still think it's still the best. I think, you guys heard me say this before. I think it propelled us being a, Coastal Division champion to start off with, and then, having an opportunity to go win an ACC championship after that in 21. To me, if we weren't some type of champion in 18, I don't know if we ever get to 21. So I think there's a building block that you need. And now, you don't get a chance to be a co-champion anymore. In the NFL, you got NFC and AFC champions, and there's fireworks and confetti and a stage. Now it's 1 or 2, and if you don't win the championship in Charlotte, you're a bad team. Period. You end the season like that. So, I'm a big proponent of the divisions. And, I remember going through, it'll make you dizzy. I don't even look, like I said, I don't look at the standings. I don't care. Let's just win our football games and go 1-0 every week. But if you look at, I know the first one is head-to-head. After that, it's like I'm not the math major. I'm not looking at it. I don't care who played who. But you're going to come down to, I think we talked a couple weeks ago about, possibly sitting in front of your team saying, hey, we're not going because we didn't play this team. That's no fun. But that's the life we're in, and we'll live with it.
But it doesn't stop there, though, because Pat Narduzzi was asked a follow-up question after that answer of what were the reasons given for going to a divisionless format way back in the day. And here you get some quality Pat Narduzzi.
I know there were some coaches that aren't in the league anymore that were whining because they had to play Clemson every year. And, in our division, it's too tough, so we can't win a championship. And I'll go back in 21. We beat Clemson in the regular season. We had them on our schedule. And, so to me, that was, just kind of a cop-out. I think it was more of, we don't want to play Clemson, let's spread it out and not have to play Clemson every year. So that wasn't me. I could care less. Just put them on our schedule every year and stay in 2 divisions. Give us Clemson. It's even better.
So should we look back at the Atlantic Division coaches in 2022? Oh, sure, why not? Clemson still had the same coach, but obviously that's not who Pat Narduzzi would be referring to here. Florida State still had the same coach, so that wouldn't be it. NC State still had the same coach. That wouldn't be it. But Wake Forest had Dave Clawson. Syracuse had Dino Babers. Louisville had Scott Satterfield. And Boston College was coached by Jeff Hafley. These were all the coaches in the Atlantic Division the year before the divisions were done away with. I don't know who Narduzzi's referring to as complaining here. I don't like he says it was ACC coaches pushing for it because they felt bad having to play Clemson every year. I think the public reason or the public outcry was more along the lines of it's not fair. Instead of getting the 2 best teams in the conference to face each other, you're getting the Atlantic winner and some garbage team from the Coastal. Never mind that some of those garbage teams won the ACC. And so the idea was like, well, if you do away with divisions, then you'll definitely get the 2 best teams. Well, the reality was that even when they had divisions, it wasn't like there were very many instances or hardly any instances where you looked at it and said, oh, the 2 best records are both in the Atlantic, but one team's getting screwed because you have to take a team from the Coastal. The reality is it was better when you played in the Coastal and the Atlantic. When you had 2 divisions, it was better. It was better. And I don't say that because Pitt was in the division that didn't have Clemson and Florida State. That doesn't matter. What they won their last game against Florida State. They almost won their game before that against Florida State. They won their last game against Clemson, and they won the game before that against Florida State. So, it's not like Pitt would be running away from those 2 teams. Put them in a division with those teams. It doesn't matter. When you have divisions, you can find out where you stand. Everybody plays everybody in the division, and then you get a real standing and a real division champion. I did think from the previous quote, Pat Narduzzi's comment about basically saying if there weren't divisions in 2018, so he couldn't tout that they won the Coastal Division, he might not still be the head coach in 2021. It's interesting. It's interesting logic. I don't agree. I don't know if I agree with him or not, but it's interesting that he thinks about it in those terms. All right, let's move on. Here's a quote from Pat Narduzzi about being 7-2. I just thought this quote was interesting because I wanted to look at some history. Here's what Pat Narduzzi said yesterday.
Man, there's no doubt about it. It's a good place to be. But again, that's what our guys work for. That's what the dream is. But we've been 7-2 before too. So it's not like this is the first 7-2 football team we've had in Pittsburgh. We've been there before, and our guys know the mistakes we've made, and the big thing is how are we going to respond after being 7-2, and can we finish the season the right way? That's my focus.
Yeah. So unless I'm missing one, Pitt has been 7-2 on 2 other occasions under Pat Narduzzi, 2021 and 2024. 2021, of course, they were 7-2, and then they won 3 in a row to finish the regular season 10-2, and then they went to the ACC championship game and won that one as well. Last year, 7-2, didn't turn out as well, and was a little bit different because they had been 7-0, and then they lost 2 in a row, and then 3 in a row, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6 in a row. So they've been 7-2 before. Pat Narduzzi said, we've been 7-2 before. They have, and it's twice, and 2 very drastically different outcomes. One time they lost 6 in a row after going, one time after starting 7-2, they lost 4 in a row. One time after starting 7-2, they won 4 in a row. So both of those including the postseason. Which path are they going to follow? I mean, I have to think you look at this and say, well, this year's team and its trajectory looks more like 2021 than 2024, but you're also facing I think a more challenging final stretch here in 2025. Although 2021, they had to, their final 3 regular season games were North Carolina, Virginia, and at Syracuse. So at Syracuse, not exactly a tough way to finish up, but Virginia, that was a game for the Coastal Division Championship. North Carolina has always been a problem. I think it's tougher this year than any of those years. This is one of the toughest finishing stretches I've seen Pitt have to face under Pat Narduzzi with Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and Miami. But I think if you're going to look at the previous 2 occasions when Pitt has been 7-2, this team, again, is closer to 2021 than it is to 2024, but those are 2 very different outcomes. All right, a couple more things matching up with Notre Dame, how Pitt matches up and how this matchup will go. One of the things Pat Narduzzi pointed out was Notre Dame's, what he called, quote, an elite, or what did he say? Their third down package is elite. Here's what he said about that.
Yeah, if you're getting third and long against these guys, you're in big trouble. So I just tell you that right now on Monday morning. If you're getting third and long, their third down package is elite. They got a different one every week. You're going to see all kinds of different stuff. They're going to blitz from everywhere and try to kill your quarterback. So, we got to, that comes down to the focus, right? I mean, it comes down to our focus in the details and how we practice, our practice habits this week, and hopefully it transfers on the field on Saturday.
Interesting, Notre Dame is actually 54th in the country in third down defense. They've allowed 37.3% conversions. Pitt is actually number 25 in third down defense. So Pitt's third down defense is a little bit better, but I think Narduzzi's point is that Notre Dame's going to try to confuse you and do a lot of different things on third down, which could be a challenge for Mason Heintschel as he goes into the biggest start of his career. Oh, nothing, just the biggest start of his, college career. Now, Notre Dame is, as was pointed out at Narduzzi's press conference yesterday, they're tied for the 3rd most interceptions in the country, Notre Dame's defense. They're 3rd with 16 interceptions. And I think this dovetails with the third down defense, confusing the freshman quarterback, getting pressure on him, forcing him into bad throws and making mistakes, and capitalizing with the interceptions. So what does Pitt need from Mason Heintschel in this game? Because the reality is, he's been really, really good, but not perfect in his 5 starts. But he's been really good, but he has put the ball in jeopardy on occasion. So what does Pitt need from Mason Heintschel to avoid doing that against a Notre Dame defense that gets a lot of interceptions?
He knows he's got to play the best game he's played all year to win this football game. He knows that. I think he don't want to do anything to hurt the football team, so he's got to be smart. But he's also got to take chances too, right? I mean, if you sit back there and you're worried about I don't want to get him to that point where he doesn't make that great throw because coach told me to protect the ball and he's got a guy open, but he was a little bit scared, so he took off running and got hit. I just want him to go play his game, but just understand you got to be smart.
I mean, I think just taking what is there is probably the key for Mason Heintschel. He's really good at taking deep shots. He's really good at attacking and being aggressive, but he needs to understand that over the course of 60 minutes, if you take what's there, you're going to move down the field and score touchdowns, and you're not going to put the ball in jeopardy. There are going to be times, if Pitt's going to win on Saturday, they're going to have to take some shots. They're going to have to be aggressive. They're going to have to fire deep, and Mason Heintschel's going to have to make some of those big-time plays. But he's not the only one who needs to or who can make big-time plays in this game. How many times have I mentioned that short pass to Desmond Reed on 3rd and 6 at Florida State that turned into a 50-yard gain? Those kinds of things. Kenny Johnson can get yards after the catch. Raphael Williams can get yards after the catch. Sincere Lee can get yards after the catch. Desmond Reed can get yards after the catch. Go to these guys. Blue Hicks can get yards after the catch. I knew I was forgetting someone there. Go to these guys. Use them. Take what the defense gives you. Don't force it. Look for those opportunities to take those shots. But in the meantime, chip away and get down the field. Keep Notre Dame's offense on the sideline. Win that time of possession, extended drives, lots of plays, long possessions, and go down the field chipping away, taking what Notre Dame's defense will give you. It's a good way to avoid those interceptions. It's a good way to keep yourself out of 3rd and long situations where, as Pat Narduzzi said, their third down package is elite. Stay away from all of it by getting little 4-yard passes, 6-yard passes, 3-yard passes, 7-yard passes. Then, when you see your opportunities, fire away. All right, we got a long week of talking about this game. I mean, say it's a long week. Tomorrow's already Wednesday. We'll be talking a little Pitt basketball tomorrow. Thursday, we'll have a big preview. Friday, we'll have our mailbag. Of course, tomorrow night, we'll have our live show, the live Panther-Lair show right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, where we can talk about everything going on. We thought we'd have a light one last week when we started at 9 o'clock. Thought we'd only talk for about a half hour. Still ended up going for a full hour. So I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about tomorrow night. Lots of content for you right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Lots of content at Panther-Lair.com. Everything to get you ready for Pitt Notre Dame. I'm excited. You're excited. Everybody's fired up. Even Pat Narduzzi, no matter what he says at his press conference. We are looking forward to this one. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. All right. Make sure you like and subscribe. And stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com for lots of content throughout the week. And we're going to have some great stuff this week. I'm telling you. All right. Like and subscribe. Enjoy your Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.